Fumitoks is online, so let's just quickly recap where we are. Just earlier today, International Master Oppo Wazen finished his last match of the 2018 candidates, winning 7-3 against Blitzbullet, taking his total to 9.5 wins out of 10, and with that win securing that he is for sure the winner of the candidates and will go on to face Jan Lee in the next couple of weeks in a 60-game event to decide who will be the Crazyhouse World Champion 2018. In close second and third were gsvc with 7.5 out of 9 and 12 Team with 7 out of 9. And now we're going to see the last game of gsvc as he tries to close out on 8.5 out of 10. Which would secure him second place. And he's playing against National Master Fumitoks from Russia. So gsvc from Paraguay and Fumitoks from Russia. And I'm just going to let people know on the Discord that this match is happening. And that I'm streaming it. Okay, so just and for anyone watching, I can also post the link for. If you ask, I can post the link for the Discord on the in the Twitch chat. So hi there, Chuck Moulton, who's already in the Twitch chat. So I'm just back home after a weekend away, and so good to be streaming again. So just really missed the first few moves a little bit. But gsvc's already got a pawn in on h3, which is bad news for white. So just replay the first few moves I saw, but then things got bad. I see. So gsvc exchanges a pawn and gets in on h3. So that does look like bad news. But he's going creative. So maybe it's so he's going to try and sack his bishop for a couple of pawns. So if pawn takes bishop, knight takes, and actually he's threatening both the weakness on c7 as well as f6. So it's going on a counterattack. And Oppa says, white forgot to put a pawn on h3. Interesting. E takes d5, bishop takes f6. Yes, which is exactly what happened. E takes f6, with the idea that if queen takes, knight takes pawn hitting the queen. Well, we're going to get knight takes pawn anyway, hitting the queen. So c7 first, interestingly. But not knight takes pawn, so why not knight takes pawn? Because maybe that would open up checks to the king. Okay, so if the queen moves, he was going to drop a knight on c7. So basically Fumitoks going on a sort of a counter attack. He realizes he has a very severe weakness on g2. So before that weakness can pay, he's going to try and go for a counterattack. Yeah, so he wasn't going for h3, he's simply going for very fast development of pieces, as Oppa says in the Twitch chat. He's got quite a lot of pieces in hand. I mean, d5 is falling. The c7 square is weak. And gsvc is actually having to give back the queen. Well, he's chosen to give back the queen. And Fumitoks is thinking whether he wants to take it or not. So what other options could white have? I mean, white could play knight takes d5. That's renewing the threat of knight takes c7. Or just go straight for the queen. Okay, so he takes the queen, and he's trying to distract this bishop. For what purpose? So bishop takes pawn. Then maybe a knight could come in on d6. And take on g7 and okay, so gsvc goes straight for a counterattack. And Fumitoks has got a choice. Does he go to f1 or does he try and run to the queen side? Okay, so knight e6, d6 is likely going to come here. And he takes on g7. Okay, so now the king is a little exposed. It's going to probably try and come with queen at d6 at some point. So the bishop is there to defend these weak dark squares. Um, okay, but so up in the Twitch chat saying it's got a little bit risky because he was threatening to take the knight and drop a knight on e3, and then yeah, there are problems. The knight e3 ideas and pawn at g2 could be dangerous. Because if knight e3 and you took that knight, pawn at g2, then yeah, and this is coming now. Pawn at g2 is the danger. But is it lethal? So it takes a knight just to keep the initiative. Takes back, rook will come on g2, but maybe the king can just run away. We'll see. And the lone wolf disagrees. He thought knight to g2 wasn't the best kind of move in that kind of position. So, yeah, well, we'll see. Is it knight? What is the best? I mean, maybe taking this knight earlier would have been a good idea because then this would have come with the threat of rook takes, and then I think, yeah, then I think this would have been lethal. But here I don't know if black has got time for something like bishop takes knight because he might be getting mated. Let's just see. So he does take it. Okay, so the question is, does white have a mate? So any check, king could possibly run. The problem is a pawn check takes away the possibility of a knight. He wants a knight on e7 to check on g8. So is there anything mating? So queen, maybe a queen on d6 drop. But is it mating? So if king g8, so you'd have to block. Okay, but then maybe it's not mating. Okay, so he goes for queen takes bishop. Yeah. So the bishop was obviously the mating piece, threatening bishop takes e2 checkmate. Queen c5, only chance, go for mate, says Aqua. Okay, well he's gone for defense, but now does black have mate? We'll see. So it's a discovered check. King here, knight takes pawn, or this way. Is there a mate? Pawn here. He has to run again. Oh, he just takes the queen. He doesn't go for the mate. That's a little risky. Maybe there was no mate. But there was a mate. Queen on the back rank. Ooh, it's very close. I think there was a mate there. I think queen on the back rank was mate with just exchange, and drop a rook on c1. But gsvc must have figured he was safe and just covered. So now in this position, is there a mate for black? So the queen covers d2. Oh, bishop takes pawn. He's just hoping to hide away. I feel like black has got too much here, but we'll see. Yeah, he's just piling in on the back rank, but has he got enough? So let's see. Yeah, that's putting a lot of pressure on Fumitoks. Just taking the queen, and then a queen would be enough to mate, wouldn't it? Let's see. Would it? I mean, he could just move the rook in, yeah, and he does that. And there's a lot of pressure. I mean, the threat is simply just sack the queen and queen a d8. He can just run with this. If he takes r, he can just block. Oh, can he? Ah. Okay. If he had two rooks, he would. Yeah, that's still. I think he's still safe. I think black is still safe here. 3 seconds left for Fumitoks. He has to somehow defend this. It's not easy. There's no way of defending it, and he runs out of time. Yeah, the threat just being takes on c1, and then queen at e1 will be mate. So game 1 goes to gsvc after what looked like a promising start from Fumitoks. And just to see, yep, I'm featured on the Lichess front page, which is nice. Okay, so e4, e5. and this interesting line where instead of leaving the knight on f6, Fumitoks is leaving his option going to g4. There's a potential sack on f2 at some point. Does he have chances of catching Oppa? No, no. Oppa has won now. Nine and a half out of 10. So this is a game for second place. And yep, he did just beat Blitz Bullet. So I just missed the last few moves. So big center from white, but can he hold it? Being challenged by black. So this pin of the knight obviously is to try and protect your center, and also to develop, getting out the pieces so you can castle quickly. There's a slight worry that this move is in the air at some point, but for now the knight covers it. And of course, if this knight is ever kicked, queen takes h2 and mate would be the idea. So this queen d6 move actually is quite... Queen takes d6, because in this position he could easily have taken with the pawn. He chose to take with the queen, so it's an interesting decision. And now h2 is a live threat. He can't castle. So I think black's position is quite nice here. White's king, for the moment, is stranded in the center. And it looks crazy, but I wonder if knight could have even taken on h2, the previous move. But there might be some obvious reason why that was a bad idea. Yeah, it keeps the bishop open, but it does block the threat of queen takes h2. And now I think white has sorted out some of his problems. Knight takes c6, says Driswold. Yeah, so knight takes c6. If bishop takes, so maybe pawn takes, kicking the bishop. I'm not sure. Then maybe you try and exploit the weakness on b7. But I quite like what white has done. I feel that black had some slight edge at some point, but it seems like white sorted out some problems. Now there's a threat of bishop takes f7, which actually does... You'd be sacking a piece for a pawn, but it does look slightly awkward. And the Lone Wolf Driswold in Twitch chat says, I don't think h2 is a serious threat. Yeah, now it's not a serious threat, I agree. I think earlier, well, yeah, now everything is all covered nicely now. Well, once that knight is dislodged, pawn takes does carry mate threat, so it's not to be ignored. It's not to be ignored. And then if you don't take, knight takes knight, queen takes, push, and maybe queen g3, but now you've got a... Yeah, okay, e2 is still covered, so there's no knight fork winning the queen. That's nice, because the bishop and the knight both cover any tricks. So, yeah, it's still okay. So he decides to block with the bishop. Why can't you just take that? There must be a reason. So queen takes bishop. Suddenly I'm... What is... Oh, I see. Interesting. He wants queen takes bishop, king takes, knight here, check, wins the queen back. That took me a few seconds longer than the players to work out what they were up to. Okay, so controlling a lot of squares, where can the queen actually go? Or he might choose to give up the queen for two pieces is another possibility, but that would be a bad idea. Well, no, that might still be possible, but yeah. It couldn't be this, because c7 would then be weak. Knight at c7 wins the rook then. So he goes this way, queen g6. But as I said, white has no pawn center, but I feel like the white pieces are quite active. So just simply threatening this fork. And yeah, just spoiled in Twitch chat. Queen takes e7 was the reason earlier. Yes, we saw. Interesting. So he sacks his knight on h2. This bishop is now trapped, so he's going to win his piece back. But I think white's going to be safe. Just pawn takes bishop, pawn takes pawn. I think everything is safe. And that black queen is going to have to now look again for squares. Are we going to see a queen trap? So knight takes bishop. So it's just looking for squares for that queen, and Fumitoks is forced to give up the queen. Just was keen on some kind of attack on f6 on the black king. That was when the knight was still. But we got a very creative attack here. The idea is if pawn takes knight, queen at h7 is checkmate. Queen at h8 is a threat. And this pawn can't take. So what a creative move. So bishop takes is forced. Pawn takes. So it's again, it's an attack on h7 is what it really is. Very creative attack on h7. Now, do you take on f7 or h7? He takes on f7. Now again, queen at h8 mate is the threat. Takes, but now he has a rook in hand, and this looks dangerous. But he doesn't have a knight. That's the one thing he needs to be able to finish off this attack. Maybe there are chances here. Bishop takes rook, rook takes knight. Bishop takes rook, rook takes knight, and I think that would have been mating. But Fumitoks, this was also nice, just simply dropping this pawn here. And the rook was pinned, so that was a very nice play from gsvc to take a 2-love lead against Fumitoks. So welcome everyone watching on Lichess and watching on Twitch. Just letting you know, this is a Crazyhouse World Championship match between two of the best players of the game. If gsvc does win this match, he comes second in the candidates and therefore is effectively the third best player in the world in Crazyhouse, after Jan Lee and Oppa. And yeah, as Jusbold says, he's not leaving counterchat. The gsvc, he doesn't play the sharpest mating lines always, but he defends very nicely. He plays very securely, so he doesn't get mated at the back himself, and he pushes his advantages through in time. He doesn't play the sharpest kind of Crazyhouse, as like Jusbold himself is a very sharp player of Crazyhouse. Plays the really sharp lines, whereas gsvc is quite different. Tries to keep it very safe, and it's very effective. So good positional awareness, good chess awareness. And if anyone is joining, I should just post a link to the YouTube where all the previous commentary can be found. And also there you can find links to the other commentary from other streamers as well, especially Jan Lee, Crazyhouse. So if you go to the playlists on my YouTube, you can see about 70 videos of streams from this Crazyhouse World Championship. So do subscribe to all the streamers to find more about Crazyhouse. And I should also link the blog, just if you want to learn more about Crazyhouse. That's lots of links about how to get better. So I just want to just share those links with you. Okay. Meanwhile, this game, so it was all very normal apart from this c5 move. So sometimes you have to be careful because it weakens c7, but it's all, and it weakens d6, but gsvc seems to be, okay. Okay, so Fumitoks displaces the king and is going straight for an attack down the center. So yeah, I think gsvc looks like he's in a little bit of trouble here. And yeah, Oppa says maybe h6 was slow, so just going back a few moves to here, h6. So the reason he did h6 is to stop the knight coming here, hitting his two weaknesses. But it is quite a slow move, it is true, and white does get an attack very fast. So the point here is the bishop is pinned, and this pawn is defended by the knight. This is a really nice attack. So he sacks the queen, wins the queen back. Okay, so it's an exchange of queens. But you see, white is very happy with an exchange of queens because the black king is in the center. And although well defended for now, it is in the center. Although all the squares around it are defended, this white's got two knights and a queen in hand, and it's definitely going to be working to pry open these defenses. Oh, h6 is slow. Okay, I misread. H6. So that was after. So a6 was necessary, but after a6, the next move is he went h6. So you're going a6, h6 as black. You're going to be wasting a lot of tempi, and a6 is perhaps necessary to stop the knight hitting all your weak squares. But maybe, yeah, maybe h6 was slow. Good, yeah, nice commentary from Opera in the Twitch chat. Okay, so how is Fumitoks going to break open these break open these defenses? He goes straight for pinning this bishop. Very nice move because it's going to take It's going to take a move or two to block everything up. Well, I was thinking like move the king or something out of the way, but okay. GSVC goes for an aggressive defense, it's potentially sacking a pawn because knight takes pawn opens up the bishop on c6. So what's the idea? It's just trying to get a move, just trying to spend a move to get safe, but I'm not sure if that works. And the idea is if rook takes, so Opera says pawn at e3, and you begin your own attack on f2. Yeah, but knight takes, pawn at e3, bishop takes rook check, pawn takes. You can then put a piece on g2, maybe a rook on g2. Yeah, but then you have lost your bishop, which is your defensive piece. So maybe that's not such a smart idea. Okay, so Fumitoks goes for knight takes pawn, coming with check. Again, there's no immediate mate threat I can see because d7 is covered, but there'll be threats of pawn at g7. Maybe a second knight will be able to come in somewhere. If king goes here, a second knight could come in here, for example. Takes. Okay. I think that just you can still go. Not sure. Okay, so Fumitoks just goes for blocking off this bishop diagonal, and this pawn is likely going to hang. So I'm not sure. I'm thinking there must be a faster way for white to attack, but he stays safe first at home, and now the threat is could put a knight on d5. Again, it's not mating immediately because the squares are very well covered. So pawn goes for pawn. Yeah, black only has one piece on the back rank, so that is quite a fast attack. And that piece has to move. If that piece were taken, the whole back rank is exposed. So it moves. White takes the pawn. Okay, so Fumitoks playing very GSV style. Let's just stay safe at home. But I wonder if there was a faster attack. And yeah, the problem is gsvc is now finding a home for the king on g8 and h8. So yeah, this is where the king goes. There's no need to exchange and give white more pieces to attack. Now I still think there must be some attacking chances here. But instead, so he goes for attacking the queen. So why not knight takes knight? With the idea of bishop takes and then drop a knight on d7. And this is coming with the knight takes rook threat, so I think that knight has to be retaken. Oh, knight takes rook is coming then. Oh, he goes for the bishop instead. Interesting. Okay, both players down to in less than 15 seconds. But look at Fumitoks, the way he's playing this. It's like trying to stay really safe at the back, maybe too safe, because the weakness is going to be on e2 if it does come to that. Okay, but he's on the back rank. Rook at e1, rook at e8 rather, and takes and a replace on e8 is possible. But instead he tries to divert the queen, and now he takes on e8. and black resigns because there's going to be a big exchange happening on c8, and yeah, mate is coming. So an interesting win from Fumitoks. Interesting because of the style in which he played it. So really taking his time, but making sure, well, taking his time, but playing actually quite fast attacks, but making sure to be safe at home. So blocking the bishop diagonal, playing at g7, knowing no need to be playing, not going necessarily directly for the king, but knowing that he's going for very fast attacks, although not completely direct attacks. Indirect fast attacks, if that's too much of a mouthful. Okay, so Fumitoks with this pushing on the queen side. It's often a good idea to undermine that this pawn often pushes and undermines the e4 square. But here he's also going for an attack on the king side. So hard to say who's better here. That move makes f6 look weak, but white has no pieces in hand. Well, he does. He could have sacked on d5 and then dropped on f6. So, and I don't understand this, because this is almost inviting the sack on d5, which maybe it's not good, because the knight could take back, but it looked very tempting. To sack on d5 and somehow get in on black's king side, but maybe this is just this is a mistake. It's even more tempting now because the f6 square is weak. If you can somehow divert this, like a knight on f6, if you can divert this pawn, it's very powerful. So it really feels like Fumitoks is leaving this f6 square really weak, but maybe it's hard to exploit. I mean, I'm even tempted by just taking the knight and dropping a knight on f6. I mean, with the threat of, if you had another pawn, but yeah, you don't have another pawn. Takes. Yeah, knight on f6, takes, and then you've got a pawn. I don't know. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's fanciful, but I just feel this looks dangerous. Okay, but gsvc playing a slower game, and probably a better game than what I'm suggesting. My eyes are just lighting up on this f6 square as a possible entry point. Okay, now I'm not sure. Where's this knight going? You definitely want to go here because otherwise you open up your own king. So here is possible. The sack here is interesting. Well, hang on a second. We don't even need to. We could just take this knight and drop a knight on f6. So yeah, a knight here is interesting. Instead of going knight on f6 immediately, he's going knight here. So that if rook takes the knight, knight f6 can collect the knight back again. Yeah, so the knight is landing on f6 whether you like it or not. It feels like you can't. Fumitoks is playing a sort of dangerous game, maybe saying, "Yep, I'm giving you f6, but I know that I can. I know that you can't make me." But it feels like a dangerous game. There are too many weaknesses in black's position. Okay, so it's true that g2 is a weakness as well. So, but okay, white is beginning the attack. So the score is 2-1 to gsvc, and I'll just let them know. Okay, I'm afraid I'm not very good at multitasking, clearly. Because okay, so he wins a bishop and sacks the. Okay, so that's opening up the rook, and instead of taking the knight immediately, just with check, just this. Okay. So Fumitoks is obviously confident he can just run away with his king, but can he? Um, I mean, there are even crazy ideas of knight takes pawn, bishop takes rook. Not in this position, but at some point. Um, okay, so he doesn't take that bishop, so he must have seen there's a problem there. What is the problem if he takes the bishop? Could it have been rook? Yeah, I don't see why. Yeah, I mean certainly. Ah, of course, it was bishop takes pawn. Yeah, so if you took the bishop, there was another bishop coming into that diagonal, so it was lethal. But yeah, the other thing is rook takes f7. Okay, so in the meantime, even queen takes. So if white has enough to mate, he can even just take this knight. Queen takes knight, and gsvc really obviously believes he does. Knight here is interesting because if queen takes, bishop takes with check, but if you don't take, your king can only go here, and it's quite cut off, and can't even go there because yeah, it could have gone here, but why not? Anyway, so this is just dying very soon. Knight here check, and it's checkmate. So you have the queen in hand with check, and that was losing. So 3-1 to gsvc. I do wonder if king went straight to f8 if there was also a combination in that line. Okay, so we're seeing a repetition of the openings in games 1 and 3, but this time white playing h3, and we're going to see, does he go again with this, which, as Oppa said in the Twitch chat, was perhaps a little bit slow in the previous 2 games ago. 3-1, indeed. So he's having a little think. So it's a Crazyhouse World Championship match, in case anyone's just joining us. It's a 10-game match, so 5-5 would mean a draw. And GSVC is trying to go for second in the standings because just earlier today, Oppa Wazen won his final match in the candidates to take his score to 9.5 games out of 10 and to secure his place as the challenger in the Crazyhouse World Championship final against Jan Lee next month. Yeah, in November. So we'll look out for when the dates for when that will be played. They will all be posted on in the calendar and on the Crazyhouse blog. So do check those out. So let's put the calendar blog link. These are the things to keep, and the calendar's on the blog. And do subscribe to the YouTube where you can see all the previous streams. And we also chat a lot on Discord about Crazyhouse. If you're interested in Crazyhouse, if you want to ask any questions, just do check out the Discord to talk with other Crazyhouse players, and we do lots of fun stuff together. Okay. So in this, you always have to watch out for these dark squares in this French setup. Well, because all your pawns are on light squares, you have to watch out for weaknesses on the dark squares. So bishop e7 is good. It covers f6. If white had a pawn, then pawn at d7 would be a bit of a headache at some point. I mean, takes the knight first and then pawn at d7. Okay, that doesn't quite work. Well, I was thinking it doesn't quite work for what I was it wasn't the pawn I wanted. Like if you'd done something like If bishop takes, the bishop takes pawn, bishop is a key defensive piece. Maybe knight takes pawn. I'm not sure. Anyway, so this is interesting, but I feel that black still is okay. I was interested. Knight takes, there's bishop takes knight, and then knight takes d5 was not so clear. But anyway, we'll see. We'll see. So white does have an extra piece, which he has now just sacked for a pawn and to get some initiative. So, and the bishop's doing a really good defensive job. So when you also have to look at what squares the king can be checked from. So if any knight checks, so all those squares are covered for now. And this is a nice move because it's both defending, covering a lot of these weak dark squares, but it's also got an eye on h2, which is the luft for the king on h2. So it's an interesting move, this bishop on b8. And Fumitoks is not attacking the dark squares; he's attacking the light squares. So the threat is if you take here, the bishop takes on d5. But of course, it's not. Yeah, this is actually quite an interesting idea. So d5 is weak, and rook does not defend d5. If pawn takes one, rook takes, d5 falls. So this is very nicely played by Fumitoks. He doesn't play bishop takes d5. Interesting. Not even knight takes d5. So he's going instead for bishop at e6 or something. So if black just retreated, white maintains a lot of initiative. So black is kind of going a little bit desperado here. I don't see it, because couldn't you just take this takes, and the knight which was covering is no longer covering e6, so I didn't see why white had to rush the attack, but this is probably, maybe it's also good. Yeah, I mean, if, not sure though. Knight f3 is his idea. Ah, okay, so this is an idea I missed. He wants to go for knight at f3, takes, and win the queen. Okay, this is why white is playing with trying to keep a lot of initiative. Can't go knight takes rook because of that. Okay, so I missed that. Knight takes rook, you'd have knight at f3 in that previous position. I mean, still, so what? You lose the queen. I'd be very surprised if there isn't mate here. What? No, so Fumitoks does not. Plays this. What? And gsvc gets a very pretty mate, but I'm wondering what went wrong there. I'm sure Fumitoks had something. That attack looked strong, but wow, gsvc is good at staying safe somehow, and I'm not quite sure how he does it. So we'll look at some of these games afterwards, just have a play through them with the analysis board, see if there are any things we missed. So 4-1 to gsvc, that's a little bit surprising. Okay, so we have another French setup. So it seems that we're going to see a feast of the French. It's French kind of setup, e6, d5. And we're also going to see a lot of these h-pawn pushes, clearly, if the last couple of games are anything to go by. Okay, he's kind of encouraging the push, and it comes. But also defends h3 a little bit. So that suggests he's thinking... Yeah, see, he was afraid of some piece drop here, which means he was... Okay, I'm struggling to provide commentary on this. So black does not want to exchange that bishop. But in the process, he seems to be undeveloping. So what is the threat? So there is actually no... I mean, the pawn is defended by the queen, so it's more the difficulty of defending for black that's at issue here. I think white could just back out. I mean, you've white's blocked in his bishop and created all kinds of weaknesses. Wow. GSVC going for it. So f7 is going to be weak, but what's the follow-up? Pawn at f... No? What is the follow-up? It's a rather creative queen sack. I'm not quite seeing how he follows up. The queen defends g7. He's only got 2 pawns in hand. I mean, he could get a third pawn and drop a pawn here, but I don't think he's got enough pieces to follow this up. Pawn at a7? Ah, pawn at a7. Okay, now I have to admit, pawn at a7. Yeah, pawn at a7, that would be dangerous, because you then drop on b7 and you're in. Okay, so I have to admit, pawn a7 is something. Knight takes bishop is also possible. So if you wanted to, people are saying in the chat, if you wanted a pawn, maybe he could have taken the pawn on d5. Do you really have to give up the queen for this attack? Yeah, it seems speculative. Okay. White gets the queen back. And it's probably just going to pile up on this back rank. What else could he do? Just a rook here, threatens queen takes. Okay, but instead he's going for this, which is pretty nice actually, because it's threatening pawn at f7. In the meantime, does he need to be worried about knight at h3 ideas? So that would need to be taken. Knight at h3. Oh my goodness. Is there anything? Knight h3 would need to be taken, but then what? Okay. Not yet, but maybe that's in the air. G2 is still covered, so, but G1 isn't covered and F2 isn't covered. That's why knight h3 is a possible, and F3 isn't covered. So if black had a second knight, things would be looking a little bit more dangerous. Maybe for now it's... Okay, so... Okay, that's a nasty move, because it's a double attack. Really... How to defend both? Queen... Logically speaking, queen at d6 would defend both, but it's no good, because white could just sack on here. Takes. Okay, yeah, rook d6 also. That's a nice way of defending both. So that way, if white does sack on d8, he only gets a rook and a bishop in hand, which maybe is not enough. Takes. King takes. Now the rook is is defending. Just a pawn here, so I think black seems to be holding things together. You could win a knight, and but then does black have a counterattack? He does win a knight, okay. So, black's chance to counterattack. Where is it? So this move here is very nice, because as well as being the hugely attacking move, it's also X-raying h3 when the rook moved. So pawn at d7 is actually partly shutting off this h3, and black just resigns. Can't see any way of stopping stuff like queen takes rook. I imagine just breaking through and probably has enough material. So 5-1 to gsvc, who's come back from a pretty long break without playing any Crazyhouse, and is still got amazing form. So anyone joining us, this is the Crazyhouse World Championship. If you want to read more about it, I'll just put the link to the candidates blog about the candidates to the Crazyhouse World Championship. In fact, sorry, this is actually got links to all the recap posts to previous rounds of the World Championship. And one of the links there introduces you to all the candidates, another link introducing you to what happened in earlier rounds and lots of puzzles and lots of stuff to get you into Crazyhouse on that website. So this is a 10-game match. So Crazy Home, I imagine, predicted 9-1 gsvc, which is why he says 5-1 and cruising towards his prediction. Well, that's some prediction. I thought it would be closer, but we'll see. So we've got 20 spectators on Lichess and 27 people watching on Twitch. So welcome everyone. And do subscribe to me on YouTube as well to see past commentaries on the Crazyhouse World Championship, and also in the playlist to see other links. Okay, so here the problem was knight at c7. So just to rewind a little bit. Takes, knight here. Queen takes rook, takes the knight, and the problem is knight at c7 is the problem. So yeah, knight d4 is quite a creative move there. So he's winning this knight for this rook, effectively. Okay, so why does he play this? So I'd have thought taking on c5 was natural, but I see he's afraid now that this knight is going to now sacrifice itself on e6 and then drop a pawn on f7 and so on. Okay, so this knight is really, this game is all about this knight, so keep an eye on this knight. First it goes and takes the piece, then it backs out again. It was about to sacrifice itself on e6, then gsvc, defended f7, afraid of some kind of attack, pawn at f7 and then a knight drop. And now it wants to come in, drop a knight on d6, so if bishop takes knight, knight takes, and maybe you take a rook and you have some kind of back rank attack. Well, having said that, back rank attacks are going to be difficult when black has got 3 rooks. But we'll see. So if, for example, bishop takes pawn, knight at c7 or knight at d6, it's very hard to stop both. Maybe a pawn at c7 is in order. That would stop both. Queens. Yeah, queens as defenders. This is a very double-edged thing, because queens are wonderful defenders, but you're losing a queen to do the defending. Yep, they are good defenders, but surely there was something. Well, we'll see. Well, maybe there wasn't something better. So gsvc gives up the queen. g7 is weak. I think pawn at g7. Yeah. So the threat is simply queen h8 checkmate. So you have to take it. So this is a really nice attack from Fumitoks. I think he's going to win this game. Knight takes, bishop takes, king takes, and he has enough diagonals to finish off the game. Well played. Fumitoks takes the score to 5-2, so the match is not over. He still has a chance of tying the match, this match 5-5, but he's got an uphill struggle to come back from. 1-5 down. Okay, so it's a pin on this knight. Well, what's he trying to do? Is he trying to incite some kind of weakness on in the moment I say it? Yep. Fumitoks loves playing b5, but then tries to cover the weakness with the rook. Okay, I mean, this is tempting just because in order to develop, black needs to develop this dark squared bishop. And so if that knight can't move out, then that dark squared bishop can't get out. But okay, white doesn't take the opportunity of doing that. I mean, of course, there could have been hit, but then you can back off. But okay, gsvc's got his own ideas. So notice a lot of pieces hitting on d5. So I'm sure that's something he's thinking of, and maybe bishop e4 might have been in order, both hitting g2 and defending, but then he must have thought knight takes bishop, pawn takes. I think that's okay, and then you've got an attack on d4, and this pawn could be the advanced party of an attack on f3. But yeah, this is just inviting the sack on d5, as Oppa says, and I think he's going to go for it. Nice. He's hitting the knight now, so it comes with a certain tempo. You can't do something like pawn here, it's too slow because bishop takes knight comes with check and so on. Can't go bishop takes knight, pawn takes knight because you're in check. So the bishop now has to... Aha, so he's sacking the bishop as well, is he? So not entirely, because if the bishop were taken, just pawn at d7 and then you can recapture. So pawn at d7 is a problem. You had to move this bishop out of the way to quickly get the king to safety. And so that's what Fumitoks does. So white's got, notice that white has a lot of pieces on black's side of the board, whereas black doesn't really have any pieces on white's side of the board. It's a bad sign, but it's not everything. White has sacrificed some pieces to get this initiative and to get this attack, but he might get them back quite soon. This is interesting. So black had an attack on c2, but so white's just going to sacrifice another piece just to blow open the black king. Okay, so what black's strategy be? I mean, you have to undermine these pawn chains, and it's difficult because this pawn could simply push and defend this pawn at some point, and that comes the very next move. So this pawn chain is just it's indomitable. So black has a surplus of pieces, but pawn h6 and f6 are ideas, says Oppa in the Twitch chat. Indeed. So because these pawns are just going to be just like a diamond on the light squares, and so maybe black's defense would want to be go to f8 and stay safe there, but the problem with that is pawn at h6 comes immediately and attacks on the dark squares. So it's a very difficult position, even though black is up 2 pieces now for how many pawns? For 3 pawns. 2 pieces for 3 pawns. And I think white should have played something else as upper. Well, those pawns are something. They're coming in. You're going to have a pawn cube on the back rank. This is the problem. So I'm not criticizing. Pawn h6 comes. Pawn takes bishop. Or pawn takes pawn comes. I mean, pawn takes pawn is almost... No, maybe not quite, because then the queen could then take here. But yeah. Okay, now there's some dangerous threats. Rook takes rook check would force king takes rook, and then rook at g1 check, and the king is in the open. So a little bit dangerous for white. White has to be a little bit careful. But yeah, takes goes to h1. Okay, so you might lose your queen, but he's hoping he would then be mating on the black side. So something like the key for black is does something like rook at e1 work and takes the queen. And he clearly doesn't think so. So why doesn't it work? I mean, the problem with this... Ah, I see. This is a very nice move. It is a mate threat. Knight at f2, rook at h1. So it has to be taken seriously. You can't just go rook at h8 and take the queen, because then you just get mated. But you could go rook at h8 and then, if you have a follow-up, but no, I can't see a follow-up. So knight f2 is a problem. There's a very nice move here white could play. Pawn at f2. It's a very... It just delays black's attack by one move. Pawn at f2, black can't do anything. He has to basically take f2, and then now you could even go rook here and take the queen. Or we could do anything else we wanted to, and black can't do anything for a whole other move just because we sacked a pawn for that. So pawn at f2 I think was a really cute idea in that position. But okay, instead gsvc defending with the queen. Queens are great defenders, but you are losing a queen. Okay, so simply knight f2 is the threat. Quite a good threat. Pawn at f2 really required now, I think. But not sure if it works. But because the problem is knight takes pawn, queen takes. You win a queen, and now you've got queen f1 is the threat. So yeah, white is in some real trouble here. Ah, he's winning the queen with check, and this is very troublesome. But is there a mate or not? Because if there isn't a mate, it's... So they're interesting. f2 is undefended. Okay. Oh, I think he's got him. Queen takes bishop is coming. I think Fumitoks missed this. Yeah, bishop here, king here, bishop back, blocks, takes, king goes into corner, pawn here is checkmate. So yeah, gsvc takes game 8 to take a 6-2 lead, and that guarantees the match. So well played gsvc. It also guarantees him second place in the standings. So yeah, huge kudos to gsvc for an amazing performance. 8.5 out of 10. The c5 opening, which he's been playing in this setup, d4, c5. Usually players are a little bit nervous about making all these dark square weaknesses, but he's been doing a good job. So 2 games ago he did lose, so we're going to see if he can fix whatever went wrong last time. So we have this sort of setup. So we're still following the game from two games ago, I believe. H-bar says, please no c5 this time, but gsvc obviously can't hear H-bar because you can't read the chat as a player. You can whisper to the chat by going /whisper, but you can't read what everyone else is saying. Okay. So yeah, this bishop knight's going to have to come out to defend, and the bishop really needs to be replaced. As in normal chess, the fianchetted bishop is a great defender, and you really don't want to lose it. But unlike in previous games, he hasn't got his king stranded in the center, so the bishop is indeed replaced. But I feel black seems to be okay here. Okay, that bishop is a real problem. It's staring in on your weak squares. You can just pile up. Maybe even bishop at d6. He doesn't go for that. So it must be he doesn't want black to get a bishop, would be my reasoning. Okay, H bar says, how could they play so well if they didn't see the chat? Right. Okay. Interesting. So this is a rather tight encounter. Black doesn't have any piece to block. Could be exchanging a bishop for a rook, potentially, but actually the queen is trapped, more crucially. Oh, how did that happen? So just backing up a few moves. Black looked like he was targeting g3, but in the end hit on e3 instead, and he's managed to get a queen trap. So white has to think of the most efficient way of disposing this queen. Well, he could have blocked, but the problem was there were problems. So he gets was that not quite a queen trap back? The queen could go here, but then bishop here was, I think that was a queen trap back. If queen here, bishop here, but I think I need to just backtrack a second. Okay, so here, white could block, but takes. Yeah, there must be some problem. So if you block the knight, you then get a knight, but then I'm not quite seeing why that's so bad. Okay, but now here, the queen could have gone here or here, but either way, there was also this square here. So you didn't have to, so I'm not sure. So both queen sacks were not completely forced, but yeah, takes h4 for sure. Oppa says a strategic sack to create weakness on the black king, on the white king side. Okay, so just simply defending d4. So he must consider that this is the very important square to. Don't want to lose a pawn, but also don't want to lose a potential sort of starting point for an attack on the dark squares. So what's to watch out for? So there was always queen at h2, but maybe there was no follow-up in that previous position. Oh yeah, so rook here was also just simply protecting against queen h2 mate. So quite a creative way of protecting. Instead of he wants both to protect this pawn and to protect against the mate. This is just walking into knight takes pawn check. What? Because you could take, but then I take the queen, and so you're losing. Yes, a queen for two pieces. So this is a queen sack back. So certainly the play is beyond my understanding in this game. Still, the queen sack back is on offer. Knight here check. Yeah, I see. It'll be knight takes knight, bishop takes queen, knight takes. And white maintains. White is still quite happy. He's desperate to give away the queen in his Fumitoks. But knight takes h4 now, exactly. This pawn now hangs. Takes. Oh, so now there's no longer defense on here, so you don't want to lose a pawn, so he just takes back here. So it's just holding on to the material. Okay, this square is a good one for the knight. So Fumitoks staying safe at home, which is good strategy against gsvc, but let's see. Does he have... So he so somehow the players are playing as if they have very little time in it. So here there was no... Yeah, f7 was well defended, so there's no point. So he's just trying to create some weaknesses, putting a lot of pieces in front of his king is Fumitoks. So h4 being hit again. Oh, he goes for the sack. Okay. g5, exactly. And he wants to hit on f6 and then just really come in on these dark squares. Okay, so, and he's hoping in the meantime he's safe enough at home. Okay, and gsvc just goes straight away for a counter. White doesn't have pawns. Oh, so pawn at g7 is a threat, but actually it is covered, and the rook covers anyway. So these bishops, are they good enough to defend the white king? So pawn takes rook, pawn takes bishop. So queen at g1 would be some kind of threat. Black defends both pawns. Again, both players playing as if they have less than 20 seconds on the clock, so keeping a nice amount. I mean, in gsvc's case, he does have less than 20 seconds on the clock. But Fumitoks keeping up the pressure. Ooh, so if knight takes, pawn takes, and h7 is weak, so this is the problem. So that's why king takes at the end of the line, just to keep h7 covered. Pawn here, queen here. And I think the knight now has to move, and now queen h7, h2 is checkmate, missed, but it doesn't matter because knight f2 is checkmate. So, wow, gsvc wins game 9. Whew. So see you, Oppa, who has to leave us. I think maybe it's dinner time in the Netherlands. So yeah, thanks for joining and thanks for all your insights in the Twitch chat. I'm going to have to go game 10 without you. 7-2 to gsvc. And Crazyhouse says, I am already right. Maybe he was predicting 7 games of gsvc. Or was he predicting 8? Ah, he was predicting an 8-2 result. Okay. I was expecting something closer. Maybe 6-4, but would have been my prediction before this match. Okay, white doesn't have that much in hand, but could just go for the sack and pawn at f6. Or indeed just taking this knight. Okay, so black castles. Got to always be careful. Knight. Oh god. Okay, this is going to be bad for black. His king is open. So white only has a queen in hand though, but he's going to be trying to work his way in. So there's a queen for a piece. He just backs off his knight. So the bishop is kind of trapped. So he's going to get a piece. He's going to get a bishop. And knight takes g2 is the threat. So as well as so yeah, rook g1 is a nice move, just defends. Bishop g4 might be a nice move because white doesn't really have any blockers. I mean, he only has a queen as a blocker, which doesn't make for a great blocker. So black does actually, although this is very ugly on the queen side, the king safety, white only has a queen. So if black is smart about the way he plays this, it could be quite nice. Okay, so he's pinned up that bishop. That's really annoying. He doesn't have a rook or something to defend it. So just h3, he's picking up a piece. So I think that was a bit of a mistake, this bishop move. It's easy to say now. he just has to block off this. Okay, so what's the idea of this move? Going to go queen takes bishop. Knight here. Yeah, if the queen is it comes off. If this queen comes off, then there's no longer a pin. And if this queen comes off, this square becomes weak, and suddenly you're picking up the rook potentially with check. And so that's quite a smart move from Fumitoks to get out of the pin, get a nice pawn, and suddenly, yeah, he's restored his kingside materially. Okay, he's a queen down for a pawn, which is not ideal, but White has got no initiative whatsoever, and yeah. So, well, I think gsvc is going to use the extra queen, but it's going to be a long grind for both players now. Ooh, what did I miss there? Ah, interesting. He drops the bishop and immediately sacrifices it for the pawn because even the second pawn is coming too, and oh my god, this completely undermines Black's position once more. Forking these two pawns, queen takes e6 coming. So quite a smart move. This bishop at e2 kind of looked like just a slow developing move, and it had tactics behind it. And the queen is running rampant. I mean, just look at this queen. I mean, boom, boom, just taking everything. And White has just got a surplus of pieces here. So, wow, really well played. I think the queen's going to continue its... yeah, so it's going to just defend. It defends in a very attacking way. Queen gets hit. Could just continue, take another pawn and block. There's no reason to do anything too fancy. But that's also nice. You lose the queen, but it's not with check or anything. This is very nice, actually, because the threat was just pawn takes this rook and rook on the back rank. You've got a huge back rank attack. Yeah, okay, you lose your queen for a rook, but you got a back rank attack. And it's very difficult. If you defend the queen, takes, replace the rook on e8, and that's going to be tough. But if you take the rook, you're going to get a queen on the back rank, so that's going to be tough. If you defend the rook with a knight, that would also be possible, but then you have knight at d7 ideas and queen at g8 will be mate. So basically queen at f8 looks like the only move, and it doesn't. And now you're losing the queen, so you take the queen, and now the white will have a queen in hand and can think again what to do. So there's no need to repeat. He can now do something else. A move like queen takes d4 would be stupid because you'd lose your queen instantly. But there are certainly other moves possible for gsvcs. A lot of material up. Just pawn at e2 to defend would be fine. But instead he goes for king f1. There's no pawn fork available because the knight defends. So how to make progress? Queen takes is still possible. Okay, because Black has placed his rook on the board, queen takes rook is now possible, and now knight at d. Yep, knight at this. Oh, I was thinking knight at e7, bishop at g8, but the knight covers g8, so that wasn't a good idea at all. So we do see knight at d7 coming. He is taking the rook, but there isn't a completely obvious... Oh, there is, because the knight has to take back. Okay, so the mate I was just envisaging the whole time, it does in fact come to pass. Yeah, the bishop on g8 and the rook on b8 and the rook on a7. That was the mate I was getting all excited about, and I thought it couldn't happen because this knight was covering it. What I didn't quite appreciate was that knight was going to be distracted, taking this rook, and so this mate does indeed happen. So actually, in this position, he would have had to have gone here to f8 to keep things alive. So the threat if queen takes rook, knight takes king takes knight later. Yeah. Okay, so 8-2 to gsvc. And if we just look at the standings, that's the final game. 8-2, putting him on 8.5 points out of 10. So 2-8, and Fumitoks has a 50% score with 3.5 out of 7, doing quite nicely. But just to show the final standings, Opperwesen on 9.5 out of 10 with no games remaining. gsvc on 8.5 out of 10 with no games remaining. 12 Teen cannot catch those two. 7 out of 10 with 1 game remaining, but that is almost certainly going to secure him 3rd place, with the only person who could possibly catch him being JK, the Bullfrog, on 3 points with 4 games remaining. Then in 4th place, Little Plotkin with 5.5 points and no games remaining. Schwanet on 4 points with no games remaining. And the only other one who can catch those two is Fumitoks on 3.5 points with 3 matches remaining. And just to finish things off, Sexo Know It is on 2.5 points with 1 game remaining. Clearcast has finished his whole series on 2 points. Blitz Bullet on 1.5 with 3 games remaining. And Master Tan on 1 point with 2 games remaining. 2 draws from Master Tan. And he's been very unlucky with lots of 4-6 losses. Pethadine in the Twitch chat says, thanks, okay. Thank you for watching. To anyone watching, this will be put up on YouTube along with the dozens of other Crazyhouse streams, so do please subscribe to the YouTube, and do also check out the playlist where I collect videos by others as well. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to have a quick look through some of the games. So for those who are interested in analysis, you can stick around. But for those who just like the live action, this may be a slightly more boring part of the stream. Well, I'll just play through the games again, but this time with sort of Stockfish turned on, and see if there are any things we missed in the live stream. So have I got this correct? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I should have. I've got something wrong. Something is wrong, but hopefully we'll try and fix it. 1, 2, 3. Okay. I'm not quite sure exactly what's wrong, but let's just get started. Oh, that's gsvc Schwaner. Okay, don't want that. So someone has started up the computer analysis already. Okay. So let's see. Game 1. Just to quickly play through some of these games. I mean, I could turn it on, but let's just try and see what the critical points might have been. This is interesting because he gets a pawn to attack on h3, but White has got an advantage in development, and White actually has the edge here. It's a pawn at c7, interesting idea. Very nice idea. The computer Stockfish didn't even see the idea itself, and knight d to b5, a nice follow-up. I was thinking knight takes d5, but actually knight d to b5 is even stronger. Knight d to b5, knight a6. But here, maybe you didn't have to take the queen immediately. I was thinking knight takes d5 is not even so good. If knight takes d5, the problem is you're opening up this diagonal, so it's something to watch out for. Apparently the move for White here was queen takes d5. It's a little bit hard to follow up with ideas of bishop takes e5, knight takes c7, knight takes c7, this sort of thing. Yeah, but he took the queen, which looks reasonable. He distracted the bishop, and this knight at g2 idea. Stockfish doesn't like it so much, but let's see. Bishop takes g7 indeed. Knight at d6. So this seemed This seemed interesting. Bishop at b4, queen d4, knight e3 check. So I think the key here was not to take that knight. So he had to move king g1, then if pawn at g2, queen takes bishop with check. Yeah, let's just quickly look at that line. Okay, so now Stockfish is thinking further and thinks taking the knight is fine, but so yeah, it's quite complicated. King g1 was just an alternative. Maybe it's worse. Just to see what would happen in this line. Pawn at g, queen takes bishop, king here. We don't have a knight to drop here. That would be very nice because then we'd go king here, knight here. If king here, queen would come here with checkmate. If king goes here, doesn't quite work actually, because if there were no bishop there, it's just a pawn there, you could go queen here, rook takes, knight here, smother. But it doesn't work in this case because queen here, bishop could take. And then we don't have a mate. But anyway, this is all speculation. So what would happen here is you then do take this knight, and black would take here, and king has to take back. And this is actually an unclear position. Black might have a slight edge. But here, apparently you can just take this knight, and black still has a slight edge with king f2, which is what was played. Yeah, and in this position, bishop takes c3 is interesting. It's really difficult. Queen c5 check, going for some kind of counterattack. Queen at d6 check. Apparently Stockfish is calling maybe see some drawing lines here with queen at, we did see queen at d6 and the idea of, but the problem was blocking on e7 was the problem, but apparently just taking on e7, king takes, queen c5 check. So what's the problem with king g8? There isn't a direct mate, but then white would be winning because king f8 again. Knight takes d5. Okay, so can we just go back? So what is the? So there's no immediate mate, but just clearing up a lot of pieces. Okay, but the move in against queen, I was thinking myself queen at d6 here, but then I thought pawn at d6. Wasn't sure how to continue. So apparently you just take this pawn. King takes, queen c5 check. Now why can't we just block again? But interestingly, if you block, you lose. Bishop d6, queen takes d6. Now this is crazy. Queen, of course, you're just winning the piece. Gosh. Okay. So there's only one move because the knight covers d6. There's only one move here for black, which is king e7. Yeah, this I did not see. And again, there's only one move for white to keep this alive, and that's pawn at e6. And black is getting mated. If he does something like pawn takes pawn, he's getting mated with pawn at c6, and apparently there's a mate in 9 in that variation. So king e8, knight to d6, and then lots of discovers, checks, and so on. So very important is bishop at d6 just to maintain protection of the king. Then knight at b6, the only move for white to stay in this. And the idea is if you take, then we've got pawn at c. I'm not seeing this at all. Why can't I just take this? Pawn at c6. Okay. White's running this way. Knight d6. Okay, if he can't run this way or he gets mated, so he runs back. And this is the repetition. Okay. Why can't white just play pawn at c6 immediately? Because then black goes king c8, knight d6, king b8, and wow, and white can't do anything. He hasn't got this queen b6 move. a6 is covered by the knight. White's checks run out. So there's this crazy idea here. Wow. Wow, okay, so this is... So white has a drawing idea. and Fumitoks will be very interested to know that he had a drawing idea in this game with queen at e7 and takes, and then queen c5. But it's really quite complicated. Yeah, that's something definitely to investigate. But instead, he took on g4. Knight d2, king e1, king d1, knight takes e3, king c1. So black is back in control. Doesn't have a completely forced mate, but he's winning the queen and he's staying safe. And the mate is only a matter of time. The mate comes, there's a matter of time before it comes. So I'm still unclear. So white does have a drawing idea, as we saw. So just to show the final, white resigned. So just to rewind. So white does have a drawing idea, but white was actually looking in control of this game just a few moves earlier. So how did it all go wrong? So knight here, taking the queen. Maybe not. Maybe queen takes d5 was stronger, but taking the queen, white's still doing well here. Maybe this pawn at b7 idea is not so good. King f1 is good. Bishop takes. Yeah, it's really difficult. Like knight d6 doesn't work so well. So it's really hard to pinpoint what white does wrong in this game, and yet somehow he ends up on the wrong. So he takes the queen, takes back. This is the only other potentially critical point. Queen to d4 perhaps being one move, hitting the bishop. But it's really not clear. White has a plus 3.3 edge. Nothing much. So Chuck Moulton's referring to the bug mate where, yeah, there is normally a bug mate where you sack your queen. But it doesn't quite work in this case because there was a bishop covering. But earlier. So really, yeah, the game one, Fumitoks really didn't do much wrong, apart from missing a really complex drawing idea. So that's one to, yeah, interesting. So let's look at game two. If you look at the cross table, so gsvc is white, and queen takes d6. Interesting. Takes, bishop to d7. Yeah, so what should black do here? Goes directly on a counterattack, apparently. But bishop d7, queen to e2. Bishop takes c6 was also possible with the idea of, yeah, okay. e5, knight f3. So just to play through some of this. So he hits the queen, takes at e5. Knight e4. So okay, so hitting this. Knight takes h2. Okay, so I'm not going through all the mistakes. I'm just playing through it in case there's anything. I'll turn sort of analysis on it. I'm just looking for anything very striking. Certainly, yeah, the queen finds itself in the queen trap. So things go wrong for black. So I'm trying to work out, yeah, at what point. The queen on d6 is interesting. Okay, so pawn f3 is not really a natural move, but the idea is if the queen takes knight, and if the knight takes, you force a queen trade, and you're taking them on f2. So it is quite a subtle tactic. Pawn e5, but otherwise it's quite natural moves from black. Maybe castling immediately, but again, takes. Pawn e5. Pawn e5 looks very natural, but knight at e5 apparently is stronger. Okay, so it's difficult to see where exactly black goes wrong, but suddenly the black queen finds itself badly positioned, and very nice move here, knight at g6. Stockfish's second favourite move, and then its third favourite move, and then favourite move. It's sort of flipping around. But it's a very creative idea. Forces bishop takes knight, so it's a very forcing variation, and then he's taking on f7, really coming in, and yeah, really a very nicely played game, I have to say, from gsvc. That game, and again, I don't see much that Fumitoks did wrong. Just really tough game, but really well played from gsvc. Okay, so game 3. This game Fumitoks won as white. So we saw this. Yeah, he hit the black king before black had castled, opened up the center, and that was all she wrote. Yeah, so it's nice how to exploit this, how to exploit the weak king. So it's rook c to d1. It quite likes. What other moves does it like? Pawn at d4. The pawn at d4 is kind of closing up that file, so I'm not sure about it. But pawn at d4, pawn at e5 are also suggested. But anyway, I quite like what Fumitoks did here. Here he could have just taken it, and then pawn at e3 was the idea. F takes e3. So this was a possibility. Pawn at e3 was black's idea. And Stockfish just suggests just take it, takes, and replace on f2. And sure, you could take my rook, but we just take back, and we've even got an attack on the rook. I mean, can't do something like this, can you? Because then I think there are too many weaknesses. And the pawn at g7 is an idea. Bishop at a4 is an idea. So yeah. So in fact, queen at d4, black one. Okay, so it wasn't something to be too squared of, but it did concern GSV sufficiently to try and stay safe. Bishop a7 just gets out of the way. And there's attacks through g7. Rook takes pawn. Apparently now e3 does actually might work, or e takes f3. Okay, but okay, so black's doing not so badly at this point. Yeah, so I thought GSVC had found some safety with king b8, but yeah, indeed, knight takes e7 and knight at d7 is a strong idea for white. Queen takes g7, so this comes here. Bishop takes knight. I was thinking knight here, but I guess king just goes to a8, and actually black is fine here. So it wasn't something to be scared of. So what else could he have been scared of? So just bishop takes knight. What else does white have? Queen at e5 maybe. So yeah. So what happened in the game was instead queen takes knight, and now that is not. So now white is back in control. So knight takes rook. Knight takes bishop is also okay. Bishop takes rook. So white's got a slight edge, and I think he's got back rank. Black's got back rank issues, which are quite hard to fix. There's not really much you can do. And in the meantime, white is really safe. So Fumitoks played this, really stayed safe at the back, and it's a mate and 6 in the final position. Okay, so nicely played from Fumitoks in game 3. Just to play through game 4. So this is a game which GSVC won as white, but it was not smooth sailing. So we saw the pawn being pushed. So still it's all quite tense. But in this whole position, I was just really wondering about, is there some way of exploiting f6? And maybe there wasn't, but it's very tempting. So apparently just castling is a good idea here. So I think it was a little bit later. So castles, I mean, in this position, takes knight. Okay, so it's quite difficult to. White has no pieces in hand for now. But he takes the knight. Yeah, knight takes e6 is another idea, but Yeah, it's not clear. He has knight f6, but okay. So now at this point, pawn at g7, bishop takes g7. So black apparently is actually fine in this position. Bishop here, f takes g3 is good, takes back. Taking the knight first, I think, was preferable. But okay, he takes back, and this is just the key. This is the key move of the game. Black played bishop at e4, and yeah, this just allows all white's pieces to come in, and it's just too dangerous. Bishop takes e7, and just all white's pieces are coming in. That had to be stopped, and the one way of stopping it is either running with the king and even giving up this knight straight up, and black is actually winning, or taking this rook. So the rook is the key attacking piece. Bishop takes knight, king takes. Okay, so you can take on g5 if you want to, but the king is going to go to d7 and is going to run away, and you don't have this dangerous rook coming in. Suppose you go queen takes bishop, hoping to come in. They simply pawn at f2, and you're even losing the queen. Pawn at f2, queen takes f2, knight at h3 check. So really tough. So bishop takes f1, really key move in this position for Fumitoks. He missed it, and just the attack is too strong. In this final position, knight here, I did actually miss this mate. King c8, knight a7 checkmate. So that's the mate I missed. So I was saying maybe king c8 is safe, but no. So he had to go this line where you win the queen with check, and then this is also a mate. So that was a very nice mating combination to finish. The final score was 8 games to 2 to gsvc, and we're just replaying through some of the games. So that was game 4. Game 2, which we saw earlier, I mean, it was quite. I didn't star it, but I think that was quite an interesting game as well, actually. Because Fumitoks didn't really do much wrong, and yet somehow, yeah, interesting. Okay, so let's go on to game 5. This is game 5 again. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, it isn't. This is game 5. Okay, good. So gsvc is black, Fumitoks is white. Let's see what happened in game 5. So, and thanks to someone who's run all these through computer analysis, that makes it very helpful actually when I'm running through these games. So again, we saw the c5. So white should be okay. So in this position, what were we thinking? Yeah, knight takes f7 feels wrong, and I remember this in the game. What is right? What is the right move in this position? So I was wondering about a rather crazy move here, which is maybe, I wasn't quite sure the order. Maybe bishop takes f6, bishop takes f6, and then knight takes d5. Yeah, that's what the move I was thinking. And when you take back, you then drop a pawn on d7. King f8. And yeah, you could win this. How do you take it back? Apparently, taking back with the queen is running into some really severe trouble with knight at d6 ideas. So let's just see why. If you take back with the queen, knight at d6, and that's hitting both the queen and f7. And oh, it's hitting the bishop as well. So why can't we go here? Because you're hitting the bishop, and I imagine the bishop you can't take back because you've got bishop and rook in hand. Why can't you take back? Bishop at d7, you're hitting the queen and threatening mate in 1. So all kinds of really complex tactics for why you can't take back with the queen, so you have to take back with the bishop. And then what? So that's still defended by the queen. Then knight takes f7 is a powerful move. Another idea is knight to h5, just hitting the bishop and just trying to open up the g7 square. But yeah, it's in this position. You're plus 4.7 for white, so it's not crushing, but it's certainly very pleasant to play. So was there anything better? Right, so Stockfish also has the idea of just e4 straight away, which is interesting. Bishop takes d5. Yeah, bishop takes d5, getting that pawn you want for d7. And this is just the same idea, just trying to hit d7. Okay, but he went a slightly different route, which did Fumitoks, and I think black kind of resolves a lot of the problems. And yeah, then this is a key point in the game. Takes here at f4, really nice move. Rook takes e2, and then here it's a real problem because bishop at e6, king f8. Yeah, the knight comes in on f3. He wins the queen. I don't understand that move, but he got a very nice mate in the end, did gsvc. But okay, but certainly in this position, white could have done better. So let's just, before, without looking at the engine, what was better here? Then bishop at e6. So he has a knight. So why couldn't he just? The first thing I'm wondering is why can't he just take this rook? And it's the same problem. Knight at f3 is winning the queen. Okay, so this is a real problem. You can't just take the rook. Okay, I'm going to have to look. There's only one move for white in this position, and it's knight at g5 check. So what's the idea? Why can't I just take that knight? Isn't it just a free knight? Because then you're no longer defending this knight, and that knight is the key to your attack on f3. So it's a distraction technique. Wow. Okay. So the king backs off, and this knight takes this rook, and so on. I mean, what else? What if you don't back off? What if you try and do something useful with your rook? What's the threat here? Queen takes d5 check, exchange queens, the black king's in the open. White is crushing. Okay, so king g8, and then it's still a game. Okay. But really key distraction technique here. Okay, king g8, just to get out of the way. Then what? Well, then we can take the rook. Oh, this is beautiful. Because the knight is now guarding the f3 square. So there isn't the same tactics that there was in the previous position. So that's a really complex little tactic. So a really complicated move that Fumitoks missed here. Check with the idea if you take it, you're taking away the attacking piece. If you don't take it, it's defending this key square. Really, really tough. Really tough and really, really lovely just to see that. And after the game, I mean, it's moves like that make it really worth like looking at the engine afterwards. And then a really nice mate that gsvc found at the end. Okay, so to go on to game 6. Yeah, this is game 6. So gsvc is white. And we see this line again. White's quite comfortable. Black pushing his pawns. Rook b8 maybe a little bit slow, but okay. Bishop h7 was really awkward move. Says apparently even just pushing h3, go for it. Queen h5, nice move. g6 again, slightly awkward. But does gsvc convert? Queen g4 indeed. I mean, knight h6. This is really hard to play for black, but queen takes e6. So let's just have a look. Queen takes e6, such a strange move from gsvc. Knight takes e6, wins a pawn for sure, but the queen is under attack. So he goes for queen takes e6. I mean, so if knight takes e6, if knight takes g4, what do? You go knight takes d8. So you have a queen exchange. And yeah, but queen takes e6. It's very imaginative. And according to Stockfish, it's just entirely sound. White's crushing here. And I thought there must be some kind of... Well, right, I mean, I thought there must be something, but this is just apparently just a crushing win for White. Um, Rook d6, queen at d6. Yeah, the problem is this double threat. But yeah, this is mate in 9 already. It's calling it. Mate in 9 with what move? With queen b takes c7. It's the forcing mate in 9 in this position. And it's the move that was eventually played. Queen takes c7, at which point black resigns. It's just too many pieces coming in. If queen at e6, for example, you're crashing through here. Rook takes, bishop at f8. If you take, queen takes is checkmate, so you can't take it, so he has to back off. Knight at c7, oh gosh, so you're winning the queen even, potentially with check at some point, or just not with check. And yeah, there's no way of stopping the mate. So, really crushing win from gsvc with a crazy queen sack. Right, okay, so game 7. So Fumitoks actually won this game as white. Just to look at the... played a very nice game actually. So knight d4. Stockfish says a mistake, but this is a really amazing game actually. The way this knight ran circles around black's position. Rook at c8, knight comes back to d4, bishop g6, knight now comes to b5, hitting these two squares. Yeah, I mean, there's just a huge material advantage, and already with that move, it's mate in 9, according to the engine, with bishop at g7 directly being the most powerful, apparently, threatening checkmate. But if you take the bishop takes pawn comes. So that's a very direct mating sequence. So what did black really do wrong in this game? Just backing off a bit. Queen takes, in this position, queen b6, which is a move you'd normally see in the French defense. Very standard move. It's no good in Crazyhouse, it turns out. And queen takes g2 equally. The queen just found itself out of play. So what was stronger moves here? c4, which we saw in other games, would have been better. Instead of queen takes b2, bishop takes, queen takes. Sort of, maybe this would have been slightly better. But still +3 for white. But I guess he was trying to vary it up from previous games, and he was really punished in this game. But yeah, very nice game from Fumitoks. So we're going to go on to game 8. Game 8, my goodness, this is a crazy game. So in this position, bishop d6 we felt was a mistake because it's just inviting this piece sack. I was thinking at the time bishop to e4, but maybe bishop to e4 is not so strong. And in fact, white's strongest move in this position is to kind of go on some kind of counterattack. What's the problem with bishop e4 is the bishop can be kicked. Okay, so that's the main problem with bishop e4. It can either be kicked or it can be taken. I thought taking black would be quite happy because he has this pawn, maybe hitting f3. He's also hitting d4, but d5 push. The king is in the center, and that's the reason why it's not so good. Okay, so really interesting. So backs off, and there's this huge sack in the center. White is crushing through. Black king's getting safe. Pawn at d7 is not the right move. Pawn at h6 is the move to get in on the dark squares. Bishop takes f7, king takes f7, and it looks really hard. These sorts of positions which computers seem to maybe play better than human beings. Bishop at h5 was important here apparently, but I don't see entirely why. And here white is winning with pawn takes bishop. So I mean, this seems like a very decent move. You're both attacking f2, which is a weakness in white's position, while also defending this bishop. But apparently bishop at h5, hitting the queen and defending f7 is stronger. I'm not quite sure why. Why can't I just take here, queen takes, and then bishop here? Okay, because then you take, maybe takes, take back, but then I could replace this bishop if I wanted to, and then I mean, this is just trying to. I'm just trying to think. What would I do in this position? I wouldn't do. Okay, so I want to move my queen to a useful square. So it's quite difficult to move the queen. It suggests even f3, just block the attack. Okay, so apparently white's got a slight edge here, but the black king is not in as dire straits as will happen after this. If you then were to take d takes e7, why can't bishop just take back? Bishop takes e7, pawn takes g7, and maybe there are some problems on these dark squares. But what happened in the game was h takes g7 first, and yeah, and rook takes f2. Yeah, really nice move from Fumitoks, and the king has to go into the corner. And yeah, this was a really interesting position. So rook at e1 or rook at g1. Why not rook at e1? Apparently rook at g1 is even stronger. Queen takes rook, bishop takes, and knight on f2 coming is the threat. So apparently black is actually winning this because bishop takes rook. So if this is really critical, if queen takes rook, you're losing the queen with check, and actually white is winning this. But with bishop takes rook, rook at f8, king can actually take on g7 or take the rook either way, and black is winning. So why is he winning? Why can't I don't know, white just develop in some way, just try and cover this bishop? No, there's something else more creative, like pawn here, king takes f8 would be forced. Yeah, I'm trying to see. Okay, so suppose white were to do something like pawn takes bishop, like a nothing move. What is the mate? Okay, so it's knight at f2, king takes g1. Okay, queen blocks off the king, and then the rook at h1 checkmate. So that's the mating trick, which is why this is so powerful. And why not go rook here? It also looks good, but the problem with here is then the bishop ends up on e1, and why is that less powerful? Because now we have knight here, rook here. I guess we want the queen to be on e1 to block everything off. But is there still a mate? If I took here, does black have mate here? There's still a mate. Yeah, king here and queen at h1 checkmate. So why is this better for white? Oh, bishop e3. So there's a way of white covering everything, whereas bishop e3 doesn't work when the bishop is on g1. So I was just quite interested to see why bishop at g1 is key. So now here, on stream, I told you guys there's a really nice move for white, which actually is winning for white. But white didn't find it, and that's just pawn at f2. And the idea is you just delay black's attack by one move. If black takes on f2, now you can just go in and continue your attack, and you have this extra move of time because the bishop is in the way and you can't put your knight on f2. But instead he goes with queen, and now black is winning. Oh my goodness. So now with the queen, now black is winning with rook at g1. Some way of just winning the queen, rook at g1, queen takes g1, bishop takes g1, and the mating threat continues with knight here, queen here, and maybe a knight to finish with some kind of mate here. So there are mating ideas. Queen is not a good defender, but with a knight here, that seemed like a perfectly decent move, but white actually gets the queen off with check, and gsvc found the mate, which is quite a nice mate. So kudos to gsvc for winning that game. The key move missed was that pawn at f2. It's a very cunning idea. Pawn f2, but also in this position, rook at g1, with the point that the bishop on g1 looks like it's protecting the king, but it isn't at all, because it's actually freeing the bishop up from f2, and the key square in this is not g1. You don't care about g1. The key square to get in on this king is the knight on f2. So bishop on g1 doesn't actually protect the king at all. So Very interesting. Let's look at game 9. So the penultimate game, which gsvc won as black. He pushes f4, so this is good as black. Bishop e7, a3, castles, knight h4. Maybe not. Maybe knight e5 suggests it's stronger, but bishop e4, rook c1, bishop takes g2, knight takes g2. Okay, so white has to waste a move really kind of sorting out his king side, as we saw in this game. So black maybe gets a slight edge. But bishop takes f4, maybe not the strongest move. Says Stockfish, maybe rook c8, but we'll see. But bishop takes f4 came, bishop takes f4. So obviously this exchange is not helping. Okay, so Chuck Moulton says that wasn't the fastest mating sequence in the last game. Knight at g3 was a much faster and better mate than knight at f2. Okay, so let's just imagine that a second. We only have the bishop and g1 and the king at h1. Very nice. Yeah, thank you, Chuck. Knight at g3, because if you ever take that knight, queen at h2 is checkmate. Brilliant. Yes. And if you don't take the knight, you go king takes, queen at f1, or other things. Yeah, very nice. And suppose we did something like bishop here to cover g3, but then we still got them. No. So we're going to play in the air a little bit here. Or should we look at... Maybe we should open it up again. Going back to that previous one. So we have these dangerous pawns coming in, but we got a lot of pieces. So if rook here, which should have been played, queen takes rook, bishop takes. So what if white played a sort of casual move like here? Then that would be blocking the knight at g3 idea. Only then would knight f2 work, but it's very complicated. I mean, it's not very, but it's much more complicated. The idea being, if you take, knight takes back, king h1, pawn to g2. Okay, so it's gonna so you run, but the queen goes to g1. Okay, king e2, and so on. Knight takes f4. Okay, so it's something much more complicated, but there is a mate. The king is going to be chased down in that sequence. Actually, let's just look what happens if you take this knight. Just takes. Obviously, if you come here, queen here is mate, so you go into the corner, but then we drive the king out, but then we take the bishop with check. Okay, and this is also going to be mating. Okay, so that's one line. So knight at g3 is a problem. So that's why you can't do anything like this, because then knight at g3 will be mating. Okay, so it's not. Again, king takes g1, queen at h1, king f2, knight at g4. So suppose king f3, pawn at e4. Okay, so there's enough apparently to mate here. King takes g4, bishop f5, check. Defended by the knight, but we can just take this knight. But this bishop is now protected on h4. Okay, king f4, queen g5. So the pieces come into play. Okay, so that's if you defend the back rank. If you don't defend the back rank, then it's even clearer. So if I just did something like this, the point is knight at g3 is a very efficient mate, as Chuck pointed out. Just king takes g1, queen at f1, and if you take the knight, there's simply queen at h2. So that was the real. And I was all the while thinking about knight at f2, and that's not so simple, because king g2, we don't have a second. At this point, we don't have another rook. So if we had a rook, we go queen here, rook here. At this point, we don't have the rook, so it's actually a really complicated mate. We do have queen at e1, but it's not so simple. We're going to have to back off. Or there's queen at h1, drive the king out, and there will be a mate eventually, but it's not a simple mate. So yeah. So that's a really important point. Bishop at g1 does not defend the king at h1, not because of clearing out the f2 square, but because of the fact that they're implicit knight at g3, queen at h2 threats. So yeah, thanks a lot, Chuck Moulton, for pointing that out. That's because that's a really useful pattern in a lot of positions, no doubt. But still, in pawn at f2 in that as a defender was a very good defensive move in that game, because knight at g3 wouldn't work if there was a pawn on f2 guarding everything. Okay, so going quickly on to game 9. It's kind of interesting. Just look at, so black played this really nicely. But then we had all these queen sacks. So bishop at h4, bishop takes h5 is fine, but okay, bishop at h4 is good. Queen takes h4 apparently is sound. Takes, bishop. Just and I think Oppa in the Twitch chat was saying how it looked sound to him. Knight f4, queen g3 looks questionable, but I guess he's trying to cover up this queen h2 mate ideas. And now the knight f5, again, this looked reasonable. But knight takes bishop was... Let's just follow this. We're following a computer line, so it might not make that much sense, but that's what the computer says. But okay. So queen is sacked back. Hard to say. But black's got a slight edge. Yeah, it wasn't clear to me actually in this game that black was the one with the slight edge, I have to admit. E3 is a blunder. Apparently knight takes g4 is just fine. But yeah, e3 you get in, pawn here, and checkmate is now avoidable with queen at g1. So you have enough apparently to break through with this, and rook blocks, and rook here is checkmate. Wow. So there was enough, but just to make sure, just backing up, gsvc defended those 2 pawns and then went for this, and now there's this forcing mate. And he did miss. After knight takes rook, queen h2 is checkmate immediately. But he's breaking through and gets the smothered mate. Okay, I mean, that was quite nice. I mean, there's so many nice games in this series. They're both fantastic players. And gsvc won the final game again. Yeah, this feels like f6 is going to be a problem. And I'm just wondering, even in this position, I mean, okay, so this is probably not the best thing, but no, you can't do it here. Yeah, so black castles queenside. Okay, falls for this really nasty stuff, but somehow he still seems to defend quite nicely until this move. This is a mistake, because then that got pinned. Bishop at g4 apparently was better, but it got pinned, and then he's losing a lot of material. And really nice find though. Bishop takes c2. I thought it was a very creative move. The point being, you then have to unpin, because if you take with the other queen, then what's the idea again? I've forgotten. Yeah, you're not defending this square anymore. So there could either be knight takes g2 apparently. I was thinking knight at f3, but the other move is knight takes g2. If rook takes, knight at f3 check. King f1, knight takes d4, these sorts of ideas. But okay. So black kind of was safe, but unfortunately he was a queen down, and then, oh my goodness, bishop at e2, really lovely move. Takes on a6, and black's position falls apart. Nothing much more to say about this game. Really great series from both players. Okay, actually, was there a way of breaking through quicker? So, check, king c8 maybe. Well, maybe it was necessary, but king c8 apparently, queen takes d8 was still mating. Queen takes d8. If knight takes d8, rook at b8 check. I'm not seeing why this is mating just yet, but rook at b8, king takes d7, bishop at e8, king comes up. Knight at e4 check, takes. Okay, so there's still a mating sequence here. And if king takes queen, then it's still also mating because you can promote to queen and there's a mate in that line as well. So instead he went to a7, queen takes rook. You can't take the queen back. This is the problem because you have this mate. But okay. I mean, wow. Lots of nice games. What can I say? And wonderful play from GSVC, winning 8-2. Spectacular queen sack in the middle of that, which is pretty hard to come up with. Yeah, thanks everyone for watching. I know the analysis isn't as exciting as the live action, but hopefully we see one or two really nice ideas in the analysis which make it worth it. So thanks everyone for watching. Do subscribe to my YouTube. Do subscribe to Chuck Moulton on Twitch and YouTube, who's in the Twitch chat. He produces lots of good content on Bughouse. Do join also our Discord where we chat a lot about chess variants in general. Bughouse, Crazyhouse, Anti-Chess, and also we discuss chess and even 960 and even Crazyhouse 960. And what more? Also check out the blog. Some of these highlights I'll be putting in some studies of the highlights from the Crazyhouse World Championship, and the best of the highlights will also be discussed in the Crazyhouse blog, which will have lots of content of how to get better in Crazyhouse, links to all these videos, all these streams. So thanks everyone for watching, and do obviously watch all Jan Lee's. I've linked the YouTube. If you look in the playlist on YouTube, you can see all the Jan Lee streams. He even streamed with Yasser earlier this week, so do check that out. That's the premium Crazyhouse content. So thanks everyone for watching, and goodbye.